Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 10 of Beyond Borders by MSA. MSA Novo is one of the only global institutional funds systematically investing in emerging technology markets. And with Beyond Borders, we host the world's leading technology founders and game changers. So when we host our portfolio companies, it's always a special episode. And today's topic is a bit different. We've come across e-commerce, we've come across fintech, but I think today's industry is something that merges all of the industries together. So storage and shipping actually still remains a big challenge for your everyday simple merchant, especially emerging markets and in the Middle East. But the co-founder and CEO of Flextock is changing this. Mohammed, thank you so much for being here. Again, it's super exciting to always have a founder and speak about your journey as a founder, your journey with us as investors. And before we kick off and speak about what you've done at Flexstock, I'd like to get to know you a bit more and have our listeners get to know you a bit more. So what's your story? Take us through your journey that led you to Flexstock. So I want to know all about your childhood, your experiences working at Bain Company, P&G, and then what led you to conceptualize Flexstock.
Okay, so first of all, thank you very much for inviting me on the podcast, Sarah. It's great to be a part of it. So I'll tell you a bit more about myself. So I'm Mohamed, co-founder and CEO of Flextock. A bit more about me. If we're going back in my childhood, we want to start from very early. I grew up in a house of both of my parents are entrepreneurs, and they're in their own businesses. They're not working as part of any companies. They have their own businesses, and this is where I really understood the idea that doing your own business is really one of the things that gives you a lot of purpose in life and enables you to actually accentuate change that you want to see and create impact as long as you believe in a certain mission that you want to change. So this was a very strong formation, and this is where I started. And a bit more down the line. So when I was in university, I always had this idea of actually starting new products and building new products. So I did back then one product which was when I was very young. I was in university. Egypt was really suffering from this kind of an electricity scarcity and not and electricity cuts that are very frequent. So because of the absence of electricity, so we wanted to really have this kind of a product that enables people to generate electricity from other forms of energy. So by that, I don't want to go into the physics of it, but we created a piezoelectric tile that basically transforms the kinetic energy of your footstep into electric current, and this adds to the electricity in the grid and enables you to be able to increase the electricity power. This was a very cool product at the time, and it got some decent traction. And one of the things that I was pushed to go with that project is to go to Silicon Valley with that product. They were interested to actually explore some kind of an investment there. I was very young, so I traveled to the US and we did something with that product there. But I was faced with the challenge of dropping out of school or to continue that project, or to go back and to really continue the normal trajectory, the normal journey. I wasn't. The idea of dropping out of school was not very, was not very familiar, specifically to in the Middle East. So I was forced to either choose between continuing the normal trajectory and the normal journey in my school and continuing that path, or dropping out and going into to be able to build the company in the US. So I didn't choose building the company back then, and this is one of the decisions that I learned a lot from. But anyway, came back to Egypt, continued my studies, and then I was really always excited about the idea of really trying to build my own company and to try to drive impact in whatever market that I'm part of. So this was a very strong experience that shaped a lot in what I wanted to do. And I was exposed to the valley as well. So this was an interesting experience when I was very young. So then I came back. I moved to the traditional journey, and this is where I joined Bain and Company. Bain is a great company to start at. Actually, did sometimes at P&G first, but it wasn't a very long time. But I then transferred very quickly to Dubai, where I joined Bain and Company. And at Bain, you basically learn two things. One is you learn discipline. And this is very important to get at the very early stages of your career, is that the rhythm that Bain installs in people is very important for to shape how they work and how they see work down the line. So it's a very long hours, kind of a tough job, where basically it exposes you to a lot of different situations and a lot of different companies at different stages, and it was an eye-opening experience. One, on that, building that discipline / stamina that you can be able to take it, keep at it all the time, and from the other side, it builds your analytical mindset. So Bain is very analytical. So you basically crunch a lot of data, specifically when you're younger, and you get to understand in a structured format how do you build sustainable strategies for companies, and what are these companies suffering from. And this was a very interesting experience as well. The third thing that you get from Bain is exposure across the region. So you work across different markets. You're always on the plane between markets, between Saudi, the UAE, Kuwait, Qatar, Egypt, so on and so forth. So you get exposed to the dynamics of these markets by actually being in them, being working in them. So this was pretty interesting for me as well. So these are the three things that you get from Bain. And then again, if we're looking backwards on that journey, so I was really in the back of my head, I wanted to be I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to build my own company. So I said, okay, so Bain is great. You get a lot of learnings, but I wanted to go back to Egypt and start my own company and really be able to fulfill that dream. Here is when I came back to Egypt, had a couple of ideas in mind. So what do we do with them? And basically, you know what, I said to myself, Bain is great, but you're not there yet. You're not ready yet to start your own company. So basically, I wanted to learn how startups operate, and this is where I joined El Menus, one of Egypt's biggest online food delivery platform. And the El Menus was at a crossroad of really trying to improve drastically their unit economics, because that market was very competitive with very strong players that are being there. And the challenge was really to build very strong unit economics in a very competitive market. And at the same time, it was not very high resources. So you need to be very analytical when it comes to your spending, and deploy the right strategies of getting the highest ROIs for any kind of spending that you are doing, and being able to truly differentiate your service and your product versus the competition that is present in the market. And this was a very important focus for us. And from that journey, I was able to truly learn how to build products, and how do you grow teams, and how do you actually execute the strategy on the ground. So that was a very important experience, and it added a lot to me personally, because at Bain, you get to develop the strategies and you get to build that kind of an analytical mindset. But in startups, you get to execute those strategies on the ground and see the results firsthand and be able to have this how we call it, like this agile mindset to be able to adapt to different circumstances that are arising every single day in the market. So this was a very, very strong experience then, and then I started to say I'm ready and I want to start my own company.
Before we move into your own company, I want to go back to something interesting that you said. So you said that your parents are both entrepreneurs, and I feel like back in the day, or even until now, of course, especially in our region and in emerging markets in the Middle East, entrepreneurship really rises from necessity, right? So we're always trying to, the traditional way was always to go work as an employee, work for a great company. But when you're really trying to solve problems in a region, that's what's labeled as entrepreneurship, right? So, and I feel like our generation now, we have such a privilege where we're able to experience startups and that culture hands-on, and that agility of a startup culture hands-on, rather than have to start with their own thing at first and go through that experience. So that brings me to another question: is how do you think it would have turned out differently if you continued with your electric startup, or if you started Flextock or another startup without going through that corporate experience? Because you see a lot of different people, especially people that are fresh out of university. No one really wants to go through the traditional corporate route anymore. Everyone wants to start their own thing, which is understandable. It's exciting. It's something that's very different to go into. It gives you freedom to test on the ground. But again, that corporate discipline changes a lot of things and builds that agility, like you said, and that stamina. So how do you think you would have turned out differently if you didn't go through that?
Yeah, I think just to give you like a straight answer, I think if I did not go to that journey between Bain and El Menus and the work that I did between corporate and startups, that shaped a lot of the way I think and the way I do business. I think if I would have continued the route with the electricity startup, it would have failed miserably, to be honest, because the skills and that you were able to acquire, that I was able to acquire throughout that journey, were pivotal to any kind of successes that we do right now. So the idea of seeing, for example, like how unit economics is very important, and how you actually build that inside your company from day one, so that you can be able to build a strong base that you can stand on later on very well. And the idea of as I was mentioning, the idea that you use this analytical mindset, that you don't make decisions in business based on solely just your gut or your impulse, you're impulsive toward different decisions, or competition is doing X, Y, Z, so you need to react to it X, Y, Z without the data. So basically, there is that kind of a data-driven decision-making approach. It's very important to be successful. And the third thing as well is building products is very important for you to actually get. It's a process. You need to be immersed in that process. You need to learn that process really well. You need to experience the successes and failures of really building products, and this adds a lot of potential, of probability to be successful when you are building your own company. So I think that these things and the journey that I was able to take was very important. And if you're reflecting on people that are coming out of university right now, wanting to start their own company immediately, I think in itself it could be a good learning experience for them. But the probability for you to be successful immediately from college is is very, very slim, in my opinion, because it takes a lot of learning to be able to stand on your feet and be successful in your journey, in your startup journey, your own startup journey.
100%. And I feel like also working in the venture capital space as investors, you also need to have that I would say either startup or corporate experience, but specifically speaking about startups here, because as investors, when we're looking at companies, assessing companies, we just look at numbers and data, right? We do look at the founder, we do look at the potential, but it's very quantitative most of the time. So when you do have seasoned investors that have worked in startups before, or founders turned investors, the first few calls are really about the product, how your operations run, how is your team built, who are the people that have built this product. So fully relatable in other spaces as well within our ecosystem. So Mohamed, tell us a bit more about Flextock. So introduce us to Flextock and how you started. So we do know that a typical challenge in e-commerce and what businesses face in e-commerce is where to store their goods, how to ensure, timely, accurate delivery, and to compete with people that have got it so easily and tech giants like Amazon. So what is the pain point that you built for initially, and how has that changed over time?
Yeah. So when we first thought about the challenge, so first of all, when I wanted to do a startup, I met Ines. Ines is my co-founder, and then we teamed up together with the vision to be able, what we call, to power the next generation of commerce. And I'll tell you a bit more about that. So when we first look at commerce and how commerce is evolving in different parts of the world, and we saw that the penetration of e-commerce in more mature markets like the US, Europe, and Asia was a game changer to the landscape of commerce in those markets. And it shifted completely the retail business specifically after COVID, with a lot of new entrants and merchants that are very easily are able to go into the commerce market without and it broke a lot of barriers for them in that market to be able for these merchants to be able to enter. So for me to explain this further, the presence of e-commerce and the increased penetration of e-commerce is enabling merchants to actually open up a Shopify website very easily, launch a couple of ads on Instagram, TikTok, or to be able to drive traffic to that website. And then, boom, you're starting to sell, which is completely different than what is happening maybe 10 or 15 years ago, where basically for you to be able to be part of the retail market, you need to open up a shop, fit out that shop, which is a very long process, and launch very expensive marketing campaigns, whether it be billboards or whatever kind of marketing that you will be able to do. So it was a completely different market back then. So the idea that it's very easy for any kind of these merchants to actually be part of the retail market and be part of and start a commerce business became very easy. And this was reinforced by the presence of fulfillment companies that are present in these mature companies, where basically they're solving a very important pain for these people, for these merchants, where basically where are they storing the products and how are they getting it to the end customer? Because the lack of these companies in the Middle East was presenting a very strong challenge and a bottleneck that we thought those merchants are really experiencing, with the lack of a fulfillment service provider that are able to store their products and ship it to the customer and provide a seamless experience to that customer who's mainly interacting with that shipping companies and that provider. So we saw that this was not very present in the market in the Middle East. Hence, it's really hindering the growth of that sector and making it much harder for these merchants to be able to enter the market. And even if they were able to enter, they were not able to scale their operations accordingly. So we saw that opportunity really well, and we focus on it, and to be able to store the products on the behalf of these merchants, and to formulate and build a network of shipping companies to be able to ship those products in the most seamless way, collect the cash, do the cash reconciliation, and transfer that cash on a periodical basis to our merchants. This enables the merchants to be able to scale in a capex-free format, where basically assuming that this merchant is doubling and tripling his number of orders every 2 to 3 months. So this guy will require doubling and tripling his footprint in terms of warehousing, shipping, and all of that every 3 months, which is not possible. Physically, it's not possible. And if it's possible, it will require huge capex investment that will put a lot of pressure on his cash flow. And not a lot of people will be able to do that, if that's even possible. So by the presence of companies that are focused on what we do, which is our mission, we will be able to remove that barrier completely for these merchants to come into that market and scale their operations much quicker at a much lower cost, while making sure that they are offering to their customer a very good experience.
Okay. And I think that has also been seen as a reflection on the economy as well. So when you look at the e-commerce logistics market in the Middle East, it was valued at about 3.5 billion in 2021, and now it's projected to grow at a CAGR of, I think, about 15 or 18% through 2026. So the number of growth in such a short period of time is just incredible, and the penetration of the market has been incredible, because you have that supply, you have that demand, but you need to build that infrastructure around it. And now, I mean, I think I was looking at some metrics as well that says about 45% of logistics companies in the region are investing in automation and AI to streamline their operations. So can you walk me a bit through how Flextock focuses on building the tech infrastructure for enabling the online merchants, rather than eventually operating a marketplace, right? So how did you manage to develop and localize this connected infrastructure from logistics to payments, and for Egypt, that's to start with, and then for the broader region?
Yeah, I think basically when we look at our technology, I think it's divided into 3 parts. So if you look at technology on the level of our operations inside, and the technology to be able to help the merchant get the right data points for them to be able to drive their brand or their e-commerce shop, to much bigger and much stronger heights. And these are the 3 things that we can say about, these are the 3 buckets that we can discuss when it comes to how do we build the product. So first, in terms of our operations inside the fulfillment center, we did a lot we invested a lot in developing our own warehouse management system that is tailored to the needs of the e-commerce merchants in the region specifically, whether be it in Egypt, Saudi, and the UAE. So we tailored that to be able to provide the most efficient and the highest accuracy in terms of the orders and the best experience for the customers. So we one of the things, for example, when we talk about efficiency in WMS, is the idea that we deploy different algorithms in the back end that enables us to optimize the placement of the products inside the fulfillment center. And this in itself is one of the key metrics that enables us to reduce the number of footsteps that different workers, for example, are taking inside those fulfillment centers, and hence reducing our overall time to deliver. The second thing is on when we that's an example on that front. So the second one is basically in terms of the technology at scale. If you're fulfilling thousands and thousands of orders on a daily basis, so the risk of you having orders that are not accurate, or an item that's placed versus another item becomes increasingly bigger because the numbers are big. So we build technology that enables us to give our merchants a 99.9% accuracy rate when it comes to their orders. So that's and that is built from a really strong process that takes the order and that item, different checks in that fulfillment centers, all leveraging technology and strong algorithms to be able to ensure that accuracy for these orders when being placed, when being fulfilled. Sorry. And so that's the first bucket. And then when you talk about the second bucket, which is the shipping companies, we team up with different shipping companies, and we provide that. We build that back end algorithms to be able to do the allocation in between those shipping companies in the best way possible. We understand that there is no single shipping company that is operationally very strong across all regions in the market that you operate in. So what we do is that we were able to build a very, very large set of data that enables us to understand the performance of these shipping companies across different areas, across different times, across different type of goods that they ship. And we sit with that data at the intersection of all of these factors together. So we know our technology is enabling us to say that this cosmetics product that is shipped to region X at specific time of the day is best to go with that shipping company and on two metrics. One, in terms of delivery speed, so we optimize on the speed of the delivery, so we do that. And the second metric is in terms of reducing the failure rate of any kind of orders not being accepted by the customer, and so on and so forth. So these two metrics are very important for merchants. Second thing on shipping as well is that shipping has a long cycle. So the orders is being fulfilled, and then it's being in the hub of these different shipping companies. Then you have some kind of an interaction, whether be it with WhatsApp, through phone call with the customer, and then you set up the time, and then you go reach the customer, and there's multiple attempts if you didn't reach the customer, and so on and so forth. So that long process, what we were able to do as well is that we were able to log all of these different steps across, and we were able to map out different proactive measures that measures any kind of those, if there's any failure across any of those checkpoints throughout the order life cycle. This ensures that we are delivering the most seamless shipping experience for our merchants, and ensure the highest success rate for their orders, and reduce their opportunity lost in a kind of with a very strong margin versus what's happening in the market. The third piece, which is very important on the product as well, is the intersection of this data. So we were able to build a strong data platform where we give the right information for our merchants to be able to plan their inventory in the right way and to be able to take the right financial decisions, whether be it on pricing, on promotions, and so on and so forth. This is pivotal as well because not a lot of our merchants are very sophisticated retailers that knows the business inside out. So what happens is that their stock, they send stock that is not even, there's not planned almost right all the time. So they have a specific SKU where it goes very rapidly. So they turned out to be out of stock and they have a high opportunity lost on that sales. While they tend to overstock from SKUs that are not selling that well. So this is added dead stock on their inventory, which puts pressure on their cash flow accordingly. So what we do is that we give them this information to be able to plan their stock accordingly on an SKU level. And this contributes very well to their own success. We use a lot of algorithms in the back end to be able to provide them that data as well. And for them to make decisions accordingly, which contributes to the overall growth and their experience of not going out of stock on the website very quickly.
Do you have an example of a company or an SME that was able to really grow with Flextock, with the stock management data that you provide? Any case study that really comes to mind that was very significant for Flexstock success journey?
Yeah. We actually, one of the things that we take very seriously inside the company, and one of the metrics that we take very seriously inside the company is how fast our merchants are growing with us. And we recorded that on a cohort level, like there are merchants that have been with us for almost 3.5 years right now. So from the very early stages of when we start. And if you look on the weighted average is that in 12 months from operating with Flexstock, merchants usually 3x their sales, 3x the GMV that is being booked. That is as a result of giving a much better experience to their customer through the services that we do, planning well the stock and making the right decisions on that front. And 3 is we always try to connect them as well with different sales channels to be able to help them grow their sales accordingly on that front. So again, I cannot really name specific case studies to be honest because of confidentiality reasons, but we have seen like most of our merchants be able to do 2x, 3x their GMV and their sales in 12 months from starting their work with us.
And that's why I always say these you are really, you're not building only a logistics and a fulfillment company, but you're building an infrastructure. And the thing with logistics is that the more you grow, the more the shipping companies grow, the higher the demand and vice versa. So it's really an interconnected ecosystem. Tell me a bit more about your consumer-facing side. So in the Middle East or generally in emerging markets, but I think this tends to still be a very popular thing in the Middle East. About 30% of consumers in the region expect same day or next day delivery. Most of that is cash on delivery as well. They're more comfortable with that. So tell me a bit more about how that impacts your operations and how it affects payment processing times as well.
Yeah, so there are two parts for the question here. So there is the angle on the cash on delivery and what we're doing on that front, which shapes a lot in the operations. And the second one, which is basically in terms of time. So what we are seeing in terms of the emergence of very strong demand for much faster shipping times. So on that front. So the norm right now, specifically in Saudi Arabia, is to deliver same day or to deliver maximum next day. But I think same day or 3 hour delivery is really on the rise right now. And a lot of the merchants need to be able to get that to the customer because it's starting to be the norm, specifically in Saudi when it comes to e-commerce. And we have been very focused on that front to be able to provide this kind of a same day delivery experience to our customers. And this shapes a lot in the technology and how we build the technology. And one of the very important pieces is that for you to be able to enable same day, you need to decentralize your stock. By decentralizing your stock is basically being closer to the customer. You cannot really fulfill from a single location and distribute across the kingdom. So you need to divide your stock across multiple locations so that you would be able to enable a same day kind of a delivery service to your customer. That is quite challenging because you, as a merchant, you usually do not know the demand. How is it going to be placed on an area level for you to be able to segment your stock or like divide your stock across these regions in a kind of a very predictable way. And this is where we come in. So we give you that kind of what we call this stock level across the network optimization information to be able to help merchants try to decentralize their stock across multiple locations and hence providing same day delivery services to their customers. It's for us. This is a long journey. We're still at the beginning for building that kind of operational footprint that is able to provide this same day delivery seamlessly to the customer. But what we say is that as a company, we built the infrastructure to be able to be very well positioned to offer that to merchants as we're growing and as we're scaling, whether be it in Egypt or in Saudi.
And definitely in Western markets, one to do day shipping is taken for granted. I mean, anytime you shop online, there's always available stock. But in emerging markets, I think definitely this remains a challenge. But you look at the UAE, for example, and it's a market where relatively fast shipping and stock management has caught up to the Western world, I'd say. But let's talk a bit more about how you're able to scale and localize each of these markets. So given the fragmented logistics market in the Middle East, so from Egypt to the UAE to Saudi, how were you able to actually start in Egypt and scale to 28 cities and scale to Saudi Arabia? So how are you able to adapt to these different market dynamics within the same region and be able to scale that technology without having to really localize it and tweak it specifically for each market?
Yeah, so one of the very important things that when we first started building Flextock, we wanted to build the model around being very asset light. So we didn't want to be heavy on the ground in terms of operations. And we understood that what is going to differentiate us as a company and how we're going to build a very strong company and that scales very fast is by offering the best technology and differentiating, leveraging technology. And we were focused on building the products that I was just talking to you about right now. And they are our differentiation point. By that, I mean that when we go into an FC, fulfillment center, we don't buy an FC, we don't fit out an FC, but we make sure that we leverage our technology to be able to operate that space while someone else is owning that CapEx and fitting out that CapEx for us on that front. And on the shipping side, we wanted not to be on the ground shipping ourselves and having our own couriers on the ground, heavy operations, cars, and all of that. So we didn't want that. We wanted to be positioned as someone who is a layer that is aggregating shipping companies across the market and that shipping services and leveraging our technology to provide efficiency on the shipping side and offering that seamless level of service to our merchants. And so the idea of remaining asset light enabled us to scale very quickly across markets because we were light. So we were coming in to a new market, just putting up our technology, shortlisting a couple of partners, doing those deals, and quickly really acquiring more and more merchants and building a presence in that market and then scaling that presence as we are growing without the need to invest very high capex on the ground. So that was how we were really able to expand quickly in new markets, even though that we're not that an old startup yet. So I would say we're 3-4 years old, and we're present in 3 markets.
Okay. And when we talk about being asset light, what are your thoughts on drop shipping and the drop shipping model? I mean, I was reading somewhere that 2 out of every 10 Americans nowadays uses drop shipping as passive income. So when it comes to merchants, what are your thoughts on that? Do you see that as an opportunity, as a threat?
No, I think it's definitely one of the subsectors that we are serving in the market. We see that drop shippers they create demand and they are contributing to a decent piece of the demand in the markets that we operate in, whether it be Egypt, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and we see us building the right technology to be able to serve those drop shippers, because at the end of the day, they need to still store the product, ship the product to the customer, collect the cash, and get that cash to get that cash quicker. So we what we say is that yes, we see it as a very strong opportunity, and we see that we can serve those drop shippers as we scale and as they scale in the market. So yeah, it's definitely an opportunity that we can capture and then we can focus on.
Let's talk a bit about Saudi. So you've had great success in Saudi over the past few months. E-commerce sales in Saudi have reached about 13 billion, and the sector's annual growth is expected to reach to about 14%. And during Riyadh's White Friday season, you've experienced 3x growth in sales. So can you tell us a bit more about this and how you're supporting growth of online traders, specifically in Saudi Arabia?
Yeah, Saudi is a very, very strong market when it comes to e-commerce, and I think we are seeing very strong trends of growth in that market. And what currently all of the initiatives that are being put forward by the government is actually very strong in terms of enabling that growth and further fueling growth of retail in the kingdom. And what we think not only in the kingdom but from outside of the kingdom inside to the kingdom and vice versa. So we're seeing like very high momentum in Saudi and in across all sectors. So whether be it in the cosmetics, in the electronics, in the fashion, in the home accessories, all are seeing very high growth when it comes to the Saudi markets. In terms of our offerings, so we try as much as possible to focus on these 4 categories or 4 sectors that I just mentioned, because we are seeing the most growth there in Saudi in them, and enabling this e-commerce growth for those merchants by offering the best experience to their customers at the most efficient way when it comes to delivery times, delivery success, and cost as well on that front. So yeah, so Saudi is a very strong market and is expected to even grow further and further as we are as things are progressing.
No, definitely the hub of the region, and especially in our ecosystem, we're seeing all companies and startups migrate to Saudi, where the market is. It has proven to be really the hub of the region. So I want to wrap it up, but I'd like to ask you a few last questions and some reflections. So, if you could control the logistics industry globally for one day, what is one thing you'd change? Or
I would, so if we're speaking about the global level, so I would focus more on cross-border trade and trying to remove a lot of the barriers that are in between countries or in between markets, to make global trade on an e-commerce level much more seamless, and enable merchants all across the world to be able to ship in a lot of different markets much easier. And this is what I will do. I think we are seeing that trend emerge of a lot of these cross-border trade, or especially in the e-commerce space. But yeah, so we want more regulations that enables a more seamless experience for those merchants to be able to scale across markets.
Definitely. I think it'll also make our lives as consumers much easier. So one last question to close it off. As a co-founder and CEO, what was one of the most unexpected lessons that you've learned across your journey so far?
One of the most interesting lessons that I found was when I first started Flextock. I was very focused on the idea of trying to build the best product possible, and to enable that scalability very quickly. But I then came to understand that the biggest asset that any company can have is the team that powers that product and build that product. So I started then to shift a bit more my mindset to build a much stronger team as we're growing, and to focus on building that strong team that in turn will build a very strong product, than me to put personally my own time into building the product myself. No, but it's better to build a stronger team that then builds a much stronger product as we're progressing. This is coupled with the idea, and it goes hand in hand with me always trying to understand that there are always better people than me in their respective fields. So a lot of the founders, they start saying that, yeah, we're strong, we can do it, and so on and so forth. But you came to the realization that there are much better people at their respective areas that are better than you, that you need to build that team, build a team around them, and so that they would take the company much further.
I think from my personal observations, founders, entrepreneurs as founders have this incredible gift of being able to micromanage and think on a macro level and build towards a vision. But I see many, tend to struggle when they have their hands on more than one thing. So like you said, you always, especially your founding team, these are your co-founders essentially as well, right? You always need to hire people that are better than you, because these are the people that you will be able to learn from in the future. And these are the people that are specialized in building the small building blocks in your company. And at
Exactly.
the end of the day, eventually, whether these people leave or not, but you also have an understanding of who is the best products person, who is the best tech lead from your experience with these people, right? So definitely aligned with you on this one. Hamad, this has been great. Thank you so much for being with us here today. And we always appreciate your insights, and we definitely look forward to more episodes with you.
Well, thank you very much for the time. I really enjoyed it today. Hope it was useful for the listeners. Thank you very much.